that Rasulullah, when it comes to his life, when it comes to his teachings, when it comes to his biography, when it comes to his remembrance, indeed, he is respected. And indeed, many people hold him greatly into their hearts and into their lives. Yet there is one sad element that we need to refer to very briefly. The fact that our books, and when I say our books, I mean the Muslim heritage and texts, the way they depict Rasulullah is sometimes shameful for many of us. In which way? Allow me to elaborate. That when you come and examine biographies written about the Prophet by non-Muslims, where do they attain their information from? Where do they get their sources from? How do they recognize the position and the maqam of Rasulullah? And what I'm going to mention now is not for the purpose of inciting hatred or in any reason causing dissension between Muslims. It's simply an academic approach towards a problem that we have and we need to tackle and face, and for the communities to be aware of. Because today, if you have a discussion and a dialogue with a non-Muslim, and they tell you that we have read, yet the life of your Prophet contains X, Y, and Z, you need to be able to answer and to say that this does not conform with my belief. What do we mean? Some of you are wondering, what is this discussion about? I'll give you one example. The incident of the first revelation, the bi'thah of the Holy Prophet. We believe it happened on the 27th of the month of Rajab. Our brothers outside the school of Ahl al-Bayt, they say it happened in the month of Ramadan. Irrespective, no problem about the dates, it's a disagreement. Yet, what actually happened? You go where? You go to Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 9, page 63, and you go to, for instance, Imam al-Tabari in his Tariq, and you'll come across the following narrations that sadly have also found its way to some Shia books. Some Shia books have narrated this as well, but they have said it is mentioned in this book. What does it say? Imagine, please concentrate. This is about the first time the revelation is attained by the Holy Prophet when he was 40 years of age. The narration in Bukhari says, Rasulullah was in Ghar Hira, and all of a sudden he hears Iqra. Read. Rasulullah, according to this narration, says, Ma ana biqari. I am not someone who reads. 3 times the voice tells him, Iqra, Iqra. He repeats the same thing. At that moment, the narration says that Jibreel took the Prophet and at the same time hugged him so strongly that the Prophet began to suffocate. And he was breathless. And then he left him. He said to him, Iqra. 3 times the Prophet said, I'm not someone who reads. Once again, Jibreel holds him so tightly that the Prophet is breathless and cannot breathe. And this happens 3 times until Jibreel says, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. And the first few verses of Surah Al-Alaq, chapter 96, are revealed. And the Prophet leaves the cave. When he leaves the cave, he descends down to whom? To Khadija, salamullahi alayha. When he meets Khadija, he says to her, I am not sure what happened. She says to him, what do you mean? He says, I heard voices. I do not know if it is the jinn or if it is malaika. Khadija said, I have a cousin by the name of Waraq ibn Nawfal. Let us go. He's a Christian monk, and let's see what he says. So Rasulullah, according to this narration, he goes to Waraq ibn Nawfal. Waraq says to him, tell me what happened. Rasulullah describes to him the incident. Waraq says, yes, yes, yes. This is also what happened to Moses. You are a prophet of God, and you will be fought by whom? By your community. And if I was alive, I would have supported you. Rasulullah returns back. Yet he's still unsure. He goes to the top of the mount of the Hira, of the Ghar Hira. And according to the hadith in Bukhari, and it saddens me to say, and I apologize to the maqam of Rasulullah and to the maqam of his grandson for mentioning it in the minbar, it is mentioned in the hadith books that Rasulullah on 3 consecutive occasions wanted to commit suicide. to throw himself from the top of the mountain. And Jibreel would stop him and say, Ya Rasulullah, you're a prophet, don't do that. Rasulullah returns back. Notice, this is the first incident in the history of Islam. And this is how it is depicted in some books. He returns back, according to whom? According to Tabari. Now we're going to Tabari, it's tafsir. He goes to Khadija. He says to her, I think it's a jinn. She says to him, I have a test for you. He says, what? She says to him, come and sit on my right lap. He sits on the right lap. She says to him, can you see him? He says, yes, I can see him. She says, sit on my left lap. Can you see him? Yes, I can see him. At that moment, she takes off her hijab and says, can you see him? He says, no, I can't see him. She says, then no, it's an angel and it's not a jinn. What did the Ahlul Bayt tell us? And how do our scholars argue or dispute this particular narration? Please pay attention for a few moments. We are told, number one, the problem with this narration is what? That Rasulullah in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Rasulullah is full of conviction. قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي. Allah says in Surah Yusuf, this is my way. I invite people towards the path of Allah on yaqeen, on conviction. And at the same time, مَا لَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. He does not speak from himself. This is all revelation. How is it, number one, that at the beginning of the revelation, Rasulullah is doubtful? Doesn't this cast doubt about the whole religion itself? Wouldn't someone come forward and say that the beginning of your religion is based on uncertainty? It's on shaky grounds. That even your prophet didn't know whether he was a prophet or not. Even your prophet wasn't aware that he was a prophet or not. Wasn't it? Number one. Number two, doesn't this story tell us or give us an idea that Khadija and Waraq ibn Nawfal are what? Are more knowledgeable than Rasulullah, God forbid? Because they knew, and the Prophet didn't know, that Khadija said, let's go, and Khadija said, sit on my right lap and my left lap, and therefore she had certain knowledge that Rasulullah didn't. Number three, and the other problem that we have with this hadith is that whoever fabricated it did not understand that malaika have no shahwa. And when it comes to malaika, it's not about this idea of hijab or not. Because when Khadija took away her hijab, and this so-called malaika disappeared, this does not make any sense. Because the malaika also are there when females have no hijab on. There is no shahwa, they have no desire, unlike human beings. Therefore, they do not disappear or in other ways occur or happen to be at a certain place when a hijab is put on or hijab is put what? Off. And number four, how can anyone accept the idea that the Prophet of Islam would contemplate performing such a vile, unacceptable action such as suicide? Totally rejected and has no place in our understanding. Therefore, what does the school of Ahlul Bayt say? The school of Ahlul Bayt comes forward and says that this hadith is rejected and cannot be accepted. What happened was that Rasulullah was visited in Ghar Hira and he was anticipating it. He knew that Rasulullah was a prophet from birth, just like all the prophets of Allah. This is the school of Ahlul Bayt. Yet at the age of 40, he received his first revelation. He was waiting, he was worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all these years. And when he received the revelation, when he was told, Iqra, he said, what should I read? Mada Iqra. This is the school of Ahlul Bayt. And when he went to Khadija, there was no this nonsense that he went to Waraq ibn Nawfal and had doubts and went this way and that way. He was full of conviction, full of strength and iman and commitment to deliver the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Imam al-Sadiq was then asked, but then how do the prophets know that Allah is sending them for the first time revelation? Imam al-Sadiq replies back by saying, Allah places in their hearts as-sakina wal-itmi'nan. Allah gives them tranquility and assurance, places it in their hearts in anticipation for them to receive the what? For them to receive the